Illini. This is Mike Kegley here with Jonathan Kerr. We may have Brad and Ked come on. We're trying something new. We'll see if we can get them from up in the press box. A couple things before I start this. Shout out to Josh McCray. Scored the winning touchdown for Georgia in the overtime victory. Guy was a fantastic player for Illinois. We wish him nothing but the best, and it was great. If Georgia's going to win, we'd rather see an Illini take the ball over the line. And Jonathan, I got to think that Indiana, as of the half, now we know Illinois can play some pretty awesome second half ball, but as of halftime, I don't think Coach Signetti and Indiana are feeling super afraid right now.
Well, why would they? The biggest thing, here's the biggest thing that I said this to some folks at work. The MAC conference players, whenever they play against a Big Ten team, this is their bowl game. Because I guarantee you, every single one of these players has been picked over. And that they're at a MAC school because the Big Ten didn't want them. And when they play against a Big Ten school, whether it's Northern Illinois, Western Michigan, they're going to play better than they will against a lot of times during the year. Western Michigan's playing very, very fundamentally well, which I can't necessarily say the same thing about Illinois from an offensively standpoint. There's a lot of garbage out there. There's a lot of things that aren't being cleaned up, which I think is an extension of the Duke game from the previous week. I would expect Western Michigan's fuel tank to run out in the second half, but you get to this point, you leave them open, and they're going in the half. Regardless of the fact that they didn't punch anything in, you kept them alive.
So the Illini are actually down in total yards with that last drive. Western Michigan has 133, which is not great, but Illinois unfortunately is at 122. Thankfully, Illinois is up 10-0. Teams are pretty close on the passing yards, 75 to 73 advantage for Illinois. Rushing yards, 60 to 47, and a surprising advantage. A lot of that due to Brock Lowry for Western Michigan. Penalties are roughly the same, but boy, Illinois had two that really helped that last drive. They're tied at 8 first downs. Total plays 33 to 31. I think it was a fairly even first half, but on the scoreboard, Mr. Sturdy, you guys are you and Ked are up in the press box there. We may see some Illini royalty walking by. Maybe how are things going up there, Brad?
Well, I think that most of the fan base is inebriated in the stands and doesn't even know there's a game going on. That's the 6 p.m. start and not having really a game that they're excited about. But the Western Michigan coaches just came running through here, interestingly enough, and they threw out a few expletives as they got on the elevator to go downstairs. They were not happy campers because they really gave away a chance to be right here at 10-7 in this game. But Illinois, the disappointing to me, and Jonathan could probably talk more to this too, but I'm very disappointed in the offensive line and the way that they've been able to they haven't gotten any push at all, hardly. And I think a lot of it, the first couple of weeks I gave them a benefit of the doubt because they had so many guys injured and they didn't have that continuity throughout the practice and preseason. But you've played. This is game 3 now, right? You got to be, had the same guys for 3 games in a row. They should be better than that. So I think that's my big disappointment. I think defense was okay. I thought they got a little bit soft at the end, trying not to give a big play. But at the end of the day, they need to turn it up. The energy, the enthusiasm, on offense need to play a little faster. Seem pretty slow. Everything's slow developing. Everything's slow decision making. Luke doesn't look comfortable. So, yeah, they're going to be better offensively, I think, in the second half, and I think they will be. I think they'll turn it up and win this handily. Western Michigan's not great offensively outside of that one drive. Really, they were not very good. They aren't very good and haven't been very good for their first 3 games.
Ked, what are you seeing there from your vantage point at the end of this first half that was a little bit deflating for Illini fans?
Well, I was kind of scared too when the Western Michigan coach came by. It takes a lot to scare me, but everybody in the press bar got up and looked, and it was weird because you don't see that from a coach. One of the rules have to be quiet, can't say anything, and he didn't hide anything. But from a football standpoint, I'm going to be honest. This is the third game in a row. The offensive line is a concern for me. We can talk all we want about the returning players and who's back and who's not, but I'm a little bit concerned about that. Luke getting sacked. There was one series where Illinois had two tight ends on the same side, and I'm sure you guys saw the same thing, and Luke ended up getting sacked. Those kind of things can happen. They look lackluster on offense. Luke has missed a couple open receivers, and he's either throwing it behind them. So maybe it's timing. I don't know, but I'll tell you this. Take one game at a time, which we all know. But if they practice next week, Indiana's going to roll up 50 on them.
So, Jonathan, you're the resident offensive line expert for obvious reasons in this group. The fact that the rest of us couldn't play in college is a big part, but the fact that you started at University of Illinois is the other part. Give us where's the breakdown coming from what you can see? Obviously, you're not there on the field, on the sideline talking to the guys, but what are you seeing as a former offensive lineman?
Well, here's what I see going back to the Duke game. Duke was very active, playing a lot of stunts, playing a lot of lining up in one shade and committing to the other shade, at the snap of the ball. And, because you got film, teams are going to continue to do things, maybe even if it's not their base defense. I see the same thing going on tonight that I saw against Duke. I know I wasn't able to be with you guys after Duke, but the first half against Duke was extremely alarming. I made a lot of notes. I saw Olin Kreutz a couple different times chewing out his guards on certain run plays because, in my opinion, I think there was a very lack of communication going. That's kind of a watershed type thing that is going to continue to, that's only going to continue to bring fuel for other defenses because if you can bring pressure and bring stunts and you can't pick them up, other teams are just going to continue to keep doing that. And again, that's a very alarming thing considering the fact that you have the whole offensive line coming back with a lot of experience. I think, for the most part, you're finding a lot of the tackles and the guards being they're not ready for what they're seeing. And I'd have to be able to see it a little bit closer. I can rewind and rewind. But the biggest thing is right now is that there is not good communication going on the offensive line. And all it takes is one person on that offensive line to blow a play up. But a lot of times you're seeing it from the guard or the tackle or the other guard. So you got to get it cleaned up in a hurry. I'm not sure how fast you can continue to do that, though.
So, Sturdy, you were watching there. Any thought on what's going on in terms of Luke 8 for 16 with 75 yards, a touchdown, and of course Khalil Valentine leading with 34 yards rushing, 6 attempts. Caden Fagan 8 attempts for 21. Luke was sacked one time. And then we also have Hank Beatty, as usual, 3 for 18 yards and a touchdown. Fagan 2 for 13 reception-wise. Malik Elzy had a 25-yard reception, which is kind of the highlight of the offensive day. Bowick has your typical 13-yard reception. Colin Dixon had a 6-yard reception. What are you seeing out of the passing game, as you're looking at this?
Well, they haven't been able to get open. It just looked like it. And then Luke's the primary read isn't open, and they've been able to take that away. And he hasn't done a good job of finding his checks, finding the second read, third read, check down, whatever. So I think that's a concern. He's got to do a better job of finding that open guy and reading that second thing. He did do a good job getting on the move. I think maybe that's the other thing is letting him get out on on the move a little bit and take away that pressure. And that's when he found Beatty for the touchdown. He was rolling out. He got the delay and so forth. So I think that's the big part of this, is to make sure that they're able to do that. Now the other thing is that I've noticed is that it seems like everything they're trying to do is right around the line of scrimmage. I mean, when they've thrown the ball down the field, they've actually been able to get some separation downfield. They didn't complete the one. It went off the fingertips, the diving play, Colin Dixon. But I mean, LZ was able to get down the field. Beatty's been open a couple times down the field. But overall, I think they have to do a better job of taking some shots, down the field and getting those, instead of like a lot of these, delays where they're trying to get the receivers down the field just to set up something short. It seems like so I think teams are selling out, saying, well, you're not going to throw it out there, so we're not really worried about that. We're going to come up and make the tackle because we figure you're going to dump it down anyway. So I don't know. That's why I like to see them, take some shots. Especially they've had a lot of man coverage where they play a lot of zone, but when they get a man on man, they need to take that shot and see what they can get. I know they got a pass interference. They had the LZ catch, and Dixon was open in all those situations.
Yeah, Malachi Hood leads the team with tackles, 5 of them, and Max Rusetich is second with 4. What are you seeing defensively that you like, and what are you concerned about?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, we're talking about the offensive line, but let's look at the big picture. They've kept them out of the end zone. They haven't scored. So we have to look at the big picture. I mean, because at the end of the day, Aaron Henry said during his press conference this week, you don't want them to get in the end zone. So if they move the ball down the field, great. But at the end of the day, you want to make sure that they don't. But you want to keep this momentum going from a defensive standpoint, but the offense needs to step up. Maybe you'll see a different half, start second half. I've always said Illinois makes great adjustments, so maybe start the second half, you may see some different adjustments from offensively. And I like to see them get to the quarterback and pick off some of the passes. Everybody seems to use that slant route against Illinois. And like Jonathan said, the more teams watch this, the more teams are going to scheme against them. No disrespect to Western Michigan, but the coaching is about to get a lot better here real soon.
All right. So before I'm going to go to Jonathan and ask him what some of the keys for the second half is. Brad, any basketball nuggets or anything that might be out there? We saw a lot of social media with Coach Underwood and some high-profile recruit. Give us a little idea of any nuggets you might have heard. Yeah,
interesting. I think the biggest thing that man for man, talking to many members of the coaching staff, it was they expect the 5 for 5 rule to pass, which is going to give every guy 5 years of eligibility, which would really change the landscape of college basketball and also change the way they're recruiting for 2026, because every player currently on the roster would be eligible to return except for Ben Hummerkaus. So that would include like a Kylan Boswell. That's kind of big. That would be really big. And, obviously you're going to have guys. I mean, Stojakovic could be a guy that ends up in the NBA. I mean, if he has a great year. So there's a lot of that as well. Maybe Tomislav also, whoever. But so I think that's intriguing. But the guys who stood out to me, but I also know that a kid like Cameron Holmes, who is a legit 5-star kid, definitely he's the kind of guy you take regardless, because you can get him out on the floor. Yeah, actually, Holmes told me that Underwood, when he was meeting with him one-on-one, he told him that he compared him to Terrence Shannon with his in-net speed and explosive. Holmes said he loves Terrence Shannon, so that's the big thing. Jackson Davis, he had a great quote. He said, college coaches get fired when they lose, so I want them to know I'm a winner. That was great. Keller Daughtry is a kid that's kind of under the radar, 6'9" shooting guard kid. Had a little piece on him. I'll have more on him too as well. So I think it's really cool to get those guys, young guys who are kind of new to the recruiting process on campus. Also, Riverside Brookfield guard was there as well, and he's just he's just a baby, 2028, but got a lot of potential. We'll see how that goes. Sinwan Han was the big kid. He was hilarious because when you put the camera on him, his English was bad. Couldn't speak English, had to have a translator, but when he was just talking, he was fine. So you can tell he didn't want to do the interview. So there you go.
Yeah, that's kind of like, when you get your food at a Chinese place and everything tastes good, everybody can speak English great. If you got a complaint, all of a sudden it just
Yeah,
fragments.
exactly. Yeah, they have a. Yeah, it was funny. Also, Stojakovic is moving fine, walking fine. Doesn't look like he has anything wrong. Ty Rogers had a little bit of a limp to him. He has a scar right down the top of his knee, which is just like you would have if you had the ACL surgery. So, you can read into that what you want.
Yep. Okay. So, Jonathan, before we wrap up here, if you were, Coach Kerr, and you were going in there and you wanted to talk to your Illini, and you had 2 or 3 key things that you thought they needed to do in the second half, what would they be?
You got to be able to firm up your assignments. I mean, you got to go to the line knowing what you're expecting. And at this point, you have to expect chaos. Now, maybe Western Michigan came in doing a whole lot of things that they weren't used to seeing. But guess what? When you continue to mess up your assignments and picking that up, you're gonna keep seeing it, and you're gonna keep seeing it. At some point, I think Illinois is going to wear Western Michigan down. And if they don't, we got a bigger problem on our hands. But the biggest thing, you need to be able to put a hat on a hat, and you got to be able to eliminate the noise that you're seeing within the offensive line, because it's either 1 or 2 different players on a lot of plays. That's, quite frankly, not acceptable when you're talking about an offensive line that's bringing all 5 guys back with a lot of experience coming back. That's got to get cleaned up. There's still time to do it. But if you can't do it at home, I'm going out on a limb here and saying, if you're at Bloomington, Indiana, it's not going to get any easier. Just like it wasn't easier at the Duke game in the first half, when, very, not a very big crowd made a lot of noise and confused them. So, baby steps. Let's look at it at that.
Yep. Well, I tell you what, it's funny because our coaches used to tell us, if you're going to make a mistake, make it at full speed and hit somebody hard. So that was my problem, except I didn't have any speed. So then there's a lot of issues there that went on.
Full speed is relative, Mike.
Yeah, full speed is relative. Yeah, I always ask people, go, how fast were you? And I say, well, my sundial time was, and they're like, sundial time? We didn't need to do a 40-yard dash because we used to do sundial. Look at that thing, and man, he's still not there yet. So, Brad, any final comments before we go? And then we'll ask Ked, and then I'll wrap her up for the halftime here. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening to this. Of course, if you enjoy the IlliniGuys.com is where you can sign up, $99 a year, and you get all that. We will be bringing Mr. Kerr in as well. He will be getting be out there on the boards as well as soon as we can get him a membership all set up, and we'll be ready to rock and roll. So, Brad, you and Ked.
No, I just want to see a team that's a little more like Jonathan said. I think have the details, handling their assignments. I mean, it seems so simple, but just execution. And if you do that, you'll be successful against this team. And they need to get ready, because Indiana's going to come ready to play next Saturday, and they better bring it a lot better than they have this first half.
Me personally, I want to see more inspired football. We got fans here. This is a Western Michigan game. No disrespect to them, but the stadium looks full. They haven't announced attendance yet. Play inspired football and show the fans why they should be here and continue to support you. They're better than that, and we know that, but don't believe the hype, because these upsets can happen.
Yeah, appreciate that. Now, folks, remember, after the game, we'll have Brad and Jonathan on, as well as Matt Stevens. But we will be on. You can get us on the STL Sports Central YouTube page. You'll also be able to find us out on the Illini Guys Twitter page as well. But we're going to be on right after the game, so you don't have to wait around. And of course, with us, we want to get everything rocking and rolling, hopefully after a fantastic Illini win, so that we can watch Canelo versus Crawford and see a historic fight on Netflix. So we're looking forward to that. So, folks, until you hear us again, we will say, go Illini.
We'll see you later.
Yes.